Becky, you want to go first? Or not? Okay. Well, hi. I'm Bridget Paddock, for those of you who are new, and this is our final session of the Montana Writing Professional Learning Network. Our final session for the school year, and then we're going to take a break for the summer. And today we are going to be talking about writing across the curriculum. And I'm an English language arts teacher at Skyview High School in Billings, Montana. In our chat, I've given you the link to a shared document that we are going to be working off of. So if you'd like to go to that. And then my partner is going to introduce herself.
All right, and I am Wendy Tyree, also an English language arts teacher at Skyview High School. And in the shared document that Bridget just pointed out, there's a spot for you to type your name and where you teach and what you teach. We are hoping there's some other folks who are going to join us today, but we do have some other guests and things like that, so as folks are kind of coming and going, that will give us a good spot to kind of come back to and make sure we all know who each other are. And my webcam is being weird today, so if I randomly just disappear, I'm still here. I just will not be a floating head. So,
Wendy and Bridget, can you point us again? I'm clicking on the chat button and I'm not finding our doc.
Let me see here. I'm going to pull it out into this.
Oh, wait, I see.
Do you
I see it. I see
here?
it.
Yeah, it's the HTTPS Google document there on that chat. You can all see that.
Got it. I'm in. Very good.
Perfect. So if you just, I'd also like to introduce, we have a guest speaker today. Her name is Glenda McCarthy, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. Glenda?
Okay, I just had to unmute so that, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, my name's Glenda McCarthy and I'm an IFA instructional coach, Indian Ed for All instructional coach in Billings, Montana. I am by trade an English French theatre teacher, but now I work with teachers across subject areas, particularly in high school and middle school, to incorporate Indian Ed for All in their classrooms in ways that they're ready to do. And I'm Australian, if you haven't heard me before. Don't accuse me. If anyone says anything about being British, I'm out of this meeting immediately.
I would not do that. I would definitely not do that.
No, you know me too well, Bridget. And just kidding, just kidding.
So for those of you who are new today, welcome Tom and Jake. What we are going to kind of do is, if you go to that shared document, we have some prompts, we have some different questions, and we kind of, just as both a different kind of activity and then also as documentation, we're going to type our answers, and then we can discuss them and respond to each other within the document.
Do you want to, oh, I'm so sorry. I was just going to say, do you want to have Tom and Jake and Tammy introduce themselves, just in case we don't all know each other,
Yes,
so Glenda can also know all of us too. So,
perfect.
Okay. I'm Christy with OPI. I think I know each and every one of you. Pass on to Tammy, maybe.
I'm Tammy Elser. I do educational consulting across the state and work with a lot of teachers in a lot of schools.
I'm Jake from OPI. I think I'm a little bit behind because I don't know how to get to this Google Doc. Can someone send me the link to that real quick?
It's right here, Jake, in the chat. Do you see a link there in the chat?
Oh, you know what? I do have it. Oh, wait, maybe I don't have it. No, you know what? I bet you that was posted before I logged in because I can't see any chat messages. There it is.
That's exactly right. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, so Christy sent me the wrong link. I think she's trying to keep the math people out of your guys' meetings. So.
I did. I'm so sorry. I'm glad that you got logged into the right one. Okay.
How about Tom?
Yeah, Tom, introduce yourself.
Tom, I think you're muted right now.
Yeah. He just unmuted, it looks like.
Okay.
Oh, Tom, we can't. I can see that he unmuted, and we were hearing him earlier. So I don't know, Tom, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. So feel free to chat us a message in the chat box, and I'll keep an eye out for you because we know you're there.
Okay, well, so the purpose of today's discussion, as we were trying to come up with a topic for this month, was the importance of writing in every discipline. So K-12 through college, in math, in history, in obviously in English. And to that effect, we have both some guest speakers, and we also have an article called Talking, Writing, and Mathematical Thinking that we brought in for today. But we're going to kind of just start off with an opening prompt, and you are going to be able to just type straight into this document. How do you and or teachers from other departments use writing in your classrooms? And how can teachers of writing enable teachers in other disciplines to embrace writing in their classroom? So as you keep typing, I wonder if anyone would like to share how they use writing in their classrooms. As an English teacher, I use writing almost every day in small pieces, and I kind of go back to Wendy writes a little bit about how writing doesn't have to be a huge thing. And I think that's important to remember, that it can be small pieces, it can be giant pieces, it comes in all sorts.
I love how, you know, Jake wrote, in math, writing can help with reflection, critical thinking, and retention. And I see Wendy put that comment there too. I mean, I just think that that's key, and it's something that I think we talked quite a bit about at Summit this weekend, and Jake and I have talked about even since then. Just key.
And I think that connects too with the article. A lot of the quotes that I pulled out talked about that push, that writing helps you think and helps you retain things and helps you reflect on things.
Mm-hmm. Tammy was just writing that nothing goes into long-term memory without it.
Rather little. Nice.
Indeed, indeed.
So Glenda, how do you see writing being used across the curriculum? You have a position where you are able to go into so many different classrooms.
Yeah, I guess I work a lot, you know, with English and social studies teachers, because that is that's ground zero for Indian Ed for All a lot of the time, not exclusively with those teachers. And I've got some stuff in the linked document that I shared with Bridget already about, for teachers in maybe social studies or science who don't typically think of writing as something they're really comfortable with in their classes. Some of the teachers I work with, the graphic organizers can be really useful as a way to do something a little more organic and interesting and responsive for students than a worksheet, but not totally open. If not like you know, give students some guidance without boxing them in too much. And so, you know, I think that can be really good. Some of my favorite ones are the ones that we use a lot in Writing Project, and that Dottie Susag has shared a lot in some of our conferences. So things like the DICE response, you know, what disturbs you, what intrigues you, what confuses you, what enlightens you. I find that really helpful. Venn diagrams and graphic organizers that allow students to reflect on primary source documents in social studies, those kinds of things. So exit tickets as well. I really like helping teachers give students choice over what they write about in those major research writing projects, so that they are teaching to writing standards but not necessarily standardizing the prompt or the question that they need to respond to. Mm-hmm. And you know, I've been inspired looking at the work that teachers have done where students have maybe had voice and ownership over the topic, and say an economics teacher who's got this fabulous paper from a student who wanted to research economic development on the Northern Cheyenne Reservation, which is that student's home. Or another student writing at length throughout a psychology semester about the psychology of eating disorders, because that was a topic very meaningful to that student. So some of the things that I see that are really powerful in terms of writing in classrooms across content areas are giving students choice and ownership over topics, and giving them ways to get started. And for that, you know, graphic organizers can be one really effective means, I think.
Well, and what I hear you sort of saying here, and Jake put this in, that, you know, and they're both coming from, I think, a math perspective, is that when kids are struggling to sort of come out with that, you know, explanation, that thinking, you know, giving them the structure of a strategy to bring that out is kind of key.
Yeah, and maybe it's listing topics, or maybe there's a strategy of a dice or a Venn diagram, or a short prompt. Yeah, and I don't work a lot with math teachers at the moment, but I do work a lot with Brooke Taylor, who does is writing EFA math curriculum for OPI, and Brooke has a lot of fabulous lessons that always incorporate usually primary sources and writing. And she explains it to her students. You say, why do we write more and read more history in your math class than we do in so many other places? Why do we write so much? And she, I've seen her share in professional development that fabulous, funny little video about Common Core, you know, the one I Choose C, where they're going for the job interview, and, you know, she doesn't know how to express her ideas coherently across disciplines.
Right.
And so Brooke, I love the way that Brooke emphasizes to fellow math teachers and to her own students, when you are doing college-related math and real-world math, you will be required to report and write and explain your ideas. And so you're going to have to be able to use numbers and words and ideas and think creatively and present effectively. So you are going to write in this math class. And the kids actually really enjoy it.
Yeah. I was just looking up here. I'm going to try to find the breakdown for the dice, because it, just in case someone is not familiar with it. And Glenda, you might know it right off the top of your head, but it's what disturbed you when you're reading, what intrigued you, confused you, or what is the last one?
Enlightened.
I was going to say excited, but okay. Thank you. I just wanted to put that.
Yeah, sure. And then, you know, like, just if anyone wants to later, it's not a big deal, I think, but that document that's highlighted in yellow, that is, I did explain that dice in there. And another great one that I've seen teachers use really well in government class is the Foursquare graphic organizer. At first I thought, then I thought, now I think. That Foursquare graphic organizer is really open as well. That's been really useful for government teachers who are teaching tribal sovereignty, which is a very complex idea, and so they might listen to a presenter, read an article, you know, look at definitions, and then at each stage of the process, you know, that they'll have some more questions or some more understanding. And I think that Foursquare graphic organizer, which is also on my linked document, is a good one for those complex topics that take, you know, it's not an easy concept to grasp or write about, so it allows students to develop their knowledge.
You know, and this actually, Glenda, sort of reminds me of Jake. I've seen a couple of Jake's math presentations, and sort of how stepping students into, and Jake, you can extrapolate on this more because I will not represent it as well as you can, but stepping students into different types of math problems and sort of coming up with answers and then solving for the answers, and sort of using reasoning to come up with, you know, a close answer and then stepping it in. And I feel like some of what you're talking about here, it's that metacognitive idea of getting students to visually see their thinking a little bit. And I think this really applies directly over to all the disciplines as well. Anyway, so that's, it kind of made me think of that. And maybe Jake, especially as we go on into the article, might be able to be a little more specific about that.
Yeah, and I've also included, I invited a math teacher from Skyview who I know uses writing in her classroom on a regular basis, and she could not be here today, but she sent me some notes. So there's a comment towards the top of the document that has how Carrie's using specifically writing in her foundations class.
Where did those go? I just thought I had it queued up here.
It's towards the top because I see that, Tom, you just said guidance on these, on developing these suggestions would be really helpful. And I think some of the things Carrie's doing are very small things, but I really do believe that those small things can be hugely powerful.
Yeah. What did she, where did her
Right
comment?
at the top, on the first page.
This one here. I just thought.
It says notes from Carrie, for example.
There it is. And let me show more.
So for instance, one of the things she said she does is we journal on a daily basis. Sometimes the journal is simply an explanation of a mathematical process or a compare and contrast for a topic. Other times it is focused on goals and how to improve performance. They don't write a lot, but she tries to make sure it's something. Also short answers on her assessments where they have to explain some things. And then that last one, not specifically writing, but we do a thing called Which One Doesn't Belong, which is some of those critical thinking things.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, and then she debates. I like that. Again, it's that claim evidence in ELA, but supporting their thinking with evidence from their problem or the text or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Hey, well, so I don't know if everyone got a chance to read the article that we sent out for this month, but I've pulled like 4 quotes from it that I thought were, I don't know, that stayed with me and I thought were important. And we're going to start with the first one, but I also think it's connected to what we were already talking about. So writing and talking in ways that learners can make their mathematical thinking visible. And I believe this for English, I believe this for math. This is my side note. I believe this for social studies, FCS. I think this applies to metacognition and how we understand things. Both writing and talking are tools for collaboration, discovery, and reflection. How can we translate this into our classrooms across all disciplines? So I'm going to just let you take a moment now and feel free to type your responses in. Here, I'll give you some space.
Thanks, Wendy. Or I don't know who pasted that in there. I think maybe that was you. Whoever pasted that in, I was just looking for it. Thank you.
Tom, I'm reading your question right now. That is now gone. There it is. And I don't teach third grade, obviously. But I would imagine that Tammy might have an answer for this.
Yeah. Yep. In fact, it vanished because I was responding to it.
And to be honest, that is a issue that we face regardless of the level we're at and regardless of the discipline. I mean, there's always that temptation to just give my students all of the info, to help them too much. And that's in a high school English class. So I'll let Tammy respond either in writing or in speaking.
I'm actually responding in writing, and I'll finish my writing thought, but I think I'll speak to it. This is one of the most important questions, the most important questions. What you want to always do is give far less guidance than you think you should, because what you do when you give too much guidance is basically taking away the responsibility from the learner to engage with the problem, whatever it may be, and solving of the problem through talk and through writing. And so I am very keen on the blank page. I feel really strongly about establishing a protocol of no prerequisites, and we start on the very first day of kindergarten when kids don't even know what letters are, with an awareness of 0 prerequisites. You want to give them that blank page, believe in them, suspend your disbelief. Wendy, this will relate to everything I've learned from Carrie Dry over the last 30 years. But suspend your disbelief and allow them the opportunity to tell their stories. And at third grade level, they absolutely have so many of those skills, and the goal is always to give them far less guidance. You can always add guidance later, but you can never take it away if you structured something too tightly at the beginning.
And I think this goes down, if you look at letter D, and as you continue to read the article, it talked about creating that community and that environment in your classroom where your students are willing to take risks. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of how you get there, is that you give them the opportunity to take risks, where you're not judging them if they get something wrong or if they don't know an answer.
Mm-hmm. And I like the reminder that Tammy was talking about, is that you can always add more support, that you can, and that's that sort of in the moment and in the lesson sort of assessment that we just naturally do throughout the day. But it's that, give them that moment to go forward, and then if they need that first step up, have a first step ready to go and give them on that as needed basis, and that's perfectly acceptable to do. And it is one of those things that you can add more later, but if you've given too much in the beginning, then it's hard to know if your assessment is then going to be accurate, because how much of that did they do or know, sort of. So I hope I didn't sound confusing there, Tom, but I was just sort of definitely agreeing with what Tammy was saying, and you can always add more.
Yeah, I think that's why I have been really a big fan of the loosely structured graphic organizer, because often I'm finding that I'm trying to help students unlearn worksheet mentality and textbook mentality, and help teachers break away from that. So, and I even catch myself, having to feeling conditioned by that culture of mainstream education, where even I'm like, oh, what's the word limit on this question? I found myself saying that in a writing project meeting last week, and then Marcia Beaumont saying, we don't do word limits in writing projects. And I went, I knew that. But, it's just that conditioning of the mainstream education. So yes, blank page is a beautiful thing, and letting students and myself as a teacher and a learner follow my own inquiry and trust the process. but for those who get very nervous with the blank page, a graphic organizer can be a good go-between to start freeing up the thought process and the writing process, I guess.
Yeah, and Bridget's typing in here, if they make a mistake, it's all right, like on a worksheet. It's also generally quite evident, a worksheet gets into that right-wrong, whereas the blank page has that nice spectrum of rightness, wrongness merging together, and that sometimes the wrong isn't really wrong, it's leading you to right, kind of, whereas that worksheet is safe and delineated. I think, and Bridget, I think, is talking about that.
It is. I had
There's no risk.
I don't know if it was a fear moment or an aha moment this semester. I'm trying something new with my classes called Genius Hour that's structured around Google's 20% time, where students have to come up with an inquiry project of their choosing. Everything generated by them, so what they're going to do with it, what they're going to do, all of it. And I had a few students who were really struggling with it. And one of them, when I was talking to her about it, said, I don't get why we have to do this. And I said, well, in your other classes, how sometimes you just get a worksheet and you don't get to choose what you're going to research. And she said, yeah, I like that. And I went, ugh. But that's also made me think that it's important to push our students to take risks in thinking because we're making the next generation of humans.
Mm-hmm. Here's another thing that I've kind of had a rub around, or like a bottleneck moment around, is I've seen some work lately about the tyranny of the 5-paragraph essay, and the idea that it's great to know how to structure a neat, clean, college application essay or 5-paragraph essay, but that's not how real writing is in the real world. And so often students in social studies, science, English classes think that it's always wrong to use personal voice, and that they can never use a form of the verb to be, and they just get so hung up on those rules. And so I found it really good when content area teachers have shown students a Milton Friedman essay published in a peer-reviewed journal that uses first-person point of view, or a published article that uses narrative vignettes, and just to show that yes, it's good to know how not to use first-person point of view sometimes in a certain style of writing, but that it's not always wrong. Again, we get boxed in so often with those ideas about writing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, and so some of the non-ELA people in this group can kind of voice this. I think that those assumptions that teachers are making are what get in the way sometimes. That sometimes math or history or whatever teachers or science teachers think that the writing has to be something really long, and it has to be a specific structure, and it has to have this many note cards for it, or this many pages of notes. And I think we need to break away from that.
Well, and that's where collaboration and reflection come in for teachers too. And not only do we need to offer those opportunities for our students, but for teachers to constantly challenge themselves to not have those set assumptions or structures in place. And, that's part of why this group is so key and important, because we come together and then here's a place for us to have these discussions and question, how much guidance is too much, how much is too little, how do I know in the middle? And part of it is just jump in and give them the blank page and build from there, and you have the support behind you to be able to do that. But I think that's where reflection and collaboration really come in my mind.
Okay, well, let's move on. I'm going to just kind of skip around because it's already 22 after. I want to go to, we kind of talked about this a little, letter D. The risks that learners are willing to take are a reflection of the kind of community in which they live. So how do you enable your students to be risk takers in learning?
So good. We are all writing essentially the same. Did anyone else notice that?
True. How many ways are there to paraphrase this?
As I started to read back over, I was chuckling. But I love, Tom, I know your audio isn't working, but I love the growth-oriented culture and that idea that we're learning together and it's a process. Just like the life is a process, learning is a process. I really think that's a really wonderful image. Yes.
Tom, that is a fantastic analogy for students.
Yeah.
just want to chime in and say how awesome all of these comments are. I feel like I just want to write and comment and talk, and I kind of forget that my camera's on, so all of a sudden, so you've been looking at the top of my head. I'm sorry. No, but these are just, I'm just excited, and all of the resources you guys have shared.
It's phenomenal.
I'm just overwhelmed with the incredible things and the risks even, we're taking in this network by sharing these things. I think it's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's my 2 cents, and now you get the top of my head again, and I'm going to write.
Well, as you guys continue to write, we are getting towards the end of our meeting, but Wendy and I have started to add, and I don't know who added the last one, summer book recommendation.
Yes!
I was wondering who added that last book to the summer book.
I can find out. But if you guys have, so these are just some books that I know either Wendy or myself have read, are going to read this summer, never going to read again, some of them, that we thought we would just share as we wrap everything up, because this will be our last meeting for the school year, as I said, because some of you maybe are already getting out of school for the year.
Pretty sensible. So I'm going to put one on here. I'll show you all the cover. Small Steps, Big Changes. This is a math book. It was actually written by a math coach. It's 8 essential practices for transforming schools through mathematics, and it is specifically about sort of math teacher leadership, but it's written from a principal, a coach, and a teacher perspective. And since this is sort of, we were talking about welcoming math people today, and hopefully they will keep coming back and joining us, I want to put this on here because this is really impactful. There are a couple of chapters in here. One is called the 80-20 rule, which I know some of you have probably heard from, but for me it's sort of impactful in just organizing that timing of your day, whether you're a teacher, a coach, an administrator. It kind of crosses levels, and to me crosses curriculum in some ways. I mean, it's a lot about math, but as an ELA person, I really enjoyed reading it. So I will put that on there because I think it's a good read, and it's not a big book. It's pretty easy to get through. So I will add it.
And then if anyone else has anything they'd like to add, please feel free. And then remember, if you have any college that you think would benefit from this, you can go to our website, or you can go to the Teacher Learning Hub, and our episodes are recorded episodes. That sounds fancier than we are. And you can watch them and answer some questions for OPI renewal.
That's right. And when will our next, let's tell everyone when our next meeting will be, so we can all get it scheduled. And I will send out reminder emails, but I just want to make sure that we all get it scheduled. Do we want to do it in August or in September? I guess it sort of depends on what you all think would be best for schedules.
I think it would be kind of nice to do one in August, right? But maybe not this, well, either the second or third week in August.
Okay.
It might be a good way to set the tone for the whole year, like start off on a positive note.
I agree, and I would suggest maybe just keeping it on the second week of August, simply because that's sort of how people know about it. So what I'll do is try to somehow on the GoToMeeting screen put, next meeting will be August the 10th at 3:45, and I'll make sure that's on the hub and we'll make sure it's up on the PLC, so everyone will be able to join in. And Tom, would you mind chatting me your email so that I can include you make sure you're included on my email listserv? I'm sure Jake has it, so I could get it from him, but if you wouldn't mind chatting that out to me or putting it somewhere where I can grab it, that would be great as well.
Okay, so that's all we have for today. Unless you're adding more books or you're asking for people to give you more books, Jamie.
I need more books. I have to find the perfect book. The perfect book.
That just means you just have to keep reading.
I keep going.
It might mean you have to write another book, Tammy.
Yes.
You know, Glenda, I think that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, awesome. I really enjoy our meetings. I'm glad you all came again.
Me
Lovely to
too.
see you all.
Me
Thank
too.
you so much for organizing, you guys. It's just been great.
Thanks for jumping in, and Tom, great to see you, and we'll see you all in August, if not before.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.